As you know, we provide 24-hour emergency services for water damage cleanup, fire and smoke, board ups from maybe a car comes off the road and smashes into a house, from a fire. We do roof tarps during the winter season. And then, of course, we do reconstruction for all of those areas. Today, I'm going to actually focus and talk about mold. We're going to talk about black mold, because it's kind of a buzzword in the mold industry. What is the black mold? Is it toxic? And what kind of molds are out there that are toxic? This is a home I visited about 1.5 years ago in Palm Desert. Probably for about 2 months, this home had been sprayed with hot water. The folks weren't home, and you can see the mold growing on the ceiling. It was on the drapes. It was on the furniture. This is a close-up of the ceiling. We don't know what kind of mold that is, but we know it's mold. Some of the molds that are concerned with health issues are Stachybotrys and Aspergillus. These particular molds and other molds produce what are called mycotoxins. The mycotoxins are hazardous to your health. Now, this is a mold spore of the Stachybotrys species. They will produce a mycotoxin that goes into the air, and it protects their environment. This home up in Apple Valley had been left vacant for months with a sliding glass door open. The water came in, it came underneath the floor and hit the wall and wicked right up the walls all the way around it. And you can see all different kinds of mold species here growing on the wall. There could be hundreds of mold species here. All of these molds are giving off a mycotoxin to protect their environment, to protect their food source. So when it comes down to it, you can't tell by looking at these mold species what they are. They have to be looked at under a microscope. Each individual mold has a specific shape and structure of the spore itself, and this is how hygienists are able to determine what species it is. The bottom line is, we don't want this in our house. Aspergillus is a type of mold species that will grow in the damp environments underneath kitchen sinks. This is one of those mycotoxin type mold spores that will produce carcinogenic gases into the air. This is behind a cabinet in a home. This is lumberyard mold. All right? So what's interesting, you can see here stacks of lumber and see how dark stained it is here and how light it is up here. Well, we're going to talk about the structure of lumber and logs and logging, and we're going to talk about what is lumberyard mold, where is it found, and is it a black toxic mold? So what we have to do is we have to understand the process of what a tree is doing. The outer ring, the light-colored material right here is what's called sapwood. Now what happens is the sapwood draws moisture and nutrients out of the roots and into the branches and into the leaves. Now as it's doing that, each year, a year goes by, it's growing, and the sapwood slowly decays and turns into heartwood. The heartwood is a more solid, dense material that doesn't have a lot of sap in it. And of course, there's the bark on the outer. So when the tree is cut, you can see how the sap pours out of the tree and all the way around the sapwood, but not in the center where the heartwood is. So what's happening in the lumberyard is there's mold floating around. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. We're breathing it right now. We go outside, we're going to breathe different species. In the lumberyard, it's floating around as well, but there's a couple of species that are particularly enjoy living and feeding on the sap from these trees. And this is what it looks like microscopic. So these mold species are what are called sap-stained fungi. So as this lumber goes into production at the sawmill, you can see how the saw cuts horizontally and vertically are going to cut through the sapwood and through the heartwood. And this is what a 2x4 is going to look like. Sometimes it's going to have sapwood, it's going to have heartwood combined with it. in the lumberyard, this is what the nice kiln-dried wood looks like. And you can see right here, heartwood, sapwood, but no staining on any of its lumber. Probably had been kiln-dried. This is what it looks like in the lumberyard. This is the sapwood stained fungi on building material in your home. Every one of us here that live in a house have this in our home. All right? The question is it a black toxic mold? That's what we got to be concerned about. So here, once again, the heartwood, the sapwood, the mold species are living on the sap. And what they have found is that the lumberyard mold does not create an indoor air quality problem. These species are rarely found in the indoor air sampling. They're pretty much stuck to the sap, and they don't become airborne, and they're encased inside a wall cavity. So for the most part, you're not going to be breathing them. And additionally, the mycotoxins are not affecting humans in the CNO group. So it's important to know that if you open the wall cavity, you have to be experienced enough to be able to determine whether is it a harmful black mold or is it the CNO group. So in summary, your Stachybotrys, your Aspergillus, these are mycotoxin producing black mold that can be hazardous to your health. The CNO group are not, the lumberyard mold. Here's a home in Redlands. We bagged it all up in order to do some demolition to take the drywall off the ceiling. And here's an actual example of the sapwood and the heartwood where mold is growing in another one here. So in addition to these other services, we do provide mold remediation. I'm certified by IICRC to do that service, and I've trained all of my employees on how to do the service as well. Thank you for listening, and I open up for any questions. Adam.
How long does it take for mold to manifest in a home? Like after the pipes burst?
Generally, there's a span of 3 to 4 days before the beginning of any small microbial growth in there. But you may not even see it at that point. You're looking at typically in the right conditions where you can start to see it flourishing about 7 to 10 days before you're actually going to see it.
Is there a difference if it's hot or cold water? Because I've heard if it's hot water, you might get mold quicker.
Well, the temperature is important. Temperature, the food source, it has to have light, it has to have, so yes, temperature will make a difference, and it will grow more abundantly in a warm environment.
What's the food source on drywall?
The paper. It's cellulosic.
Oh, so it's the sugar in the paper?
Well, just the paper itself. Any cellulosic material, it'll grow on dirt. It'll grow on a window if there's dirt on the window. It's not feeding on the glass. It's feeding on anything that it can grow on, which was cellulosic.
One more question.
One more?
I had a house in Ukaipa that had a bunch of that black stuff up in the attic when I went up in there. And what's the best way to try to do anything? Because the buyer wouldn't accept the property until it was treated.
Well, there's different chemicals that can be used to remediate and remove the mold. You don't want to just go in there and spray something to kill it because basically it's still there, number one.
Right.
And if there are any mycotoxins, they continue to be an allergenic or a health problem to immune deficient people. So you have to get up there literally and remove it. And it's done. We have some special chemicals that we use, but in the industry as a whole, sanding, scraping, HEPA vacuuming, wiping, to literally remove it down to, you have to get into the root structure of the mold, because it's not just growing, unlike the sap mold that's growing on the sap, the mold, these other mold species use the tree or the wood to bury their roots into it. So you have to get down to the roots. If you don't remove the roots, they're just dormant. That's one thing about mold. It goes back to biblical days. They talk about it in the Bible. Mold has been around forever. All it does is go dormant. It never dies unless it's actually treated with something that'll kill it.
Not even bleach?
Bleach will kill it,
Okay.
but it doesn't remove it, and it doesn't change the allergenic properties of it. You have to literally remove it.
So it'll grow back after bleach is what you're saying?
Not necessarily. It'll be dead mold
Okay.
after bleach. But in order to make sure that it's gone, you have to remove it and you have to get it down into the hyphae, which are the root structure, into the wood itself. Thank you.